Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast. This is where you go to learn how to use pure motive service to create higher value to grow your results. And now, here is your host, America's Service Sales Coach, Joe Crisara.
Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast. My name is Joe Crisara, America's Service Sales Coach, and I am here with a colleague who I have a lot of great respect for. His name is Lee Salz. Lee is a sales contrarian. I've probably known him for about 12 years, or we've known each other for about 12 years, and really never. This is the first time we had a face-to-face, though, Lee. So thank you and welcome to the show here today, Lee. I really appreciate you.
Joe, thank you for having me. It has been about 12 years.
Yeah, Lee has a series of books. He just never stops writing. He must be a thing where he documents everything he's learning, and he's like, hey, might as well turn it into a book, right, Lee? Go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you wound up being one of my heroes in the sales industry, if you don't mind.
Very kind. I have to tell you, I have a T-shirt that says, be careful what you say, because it could end up in my next book. My regular life lessons become videos that I make, elements of the books that I write. I mean, everything turns into a story. And we were supposed to speak a couple of weeks ago, and I'll give you an example. We had the unfortunate situation of having to say goodbye to our pup that we had for 15 years. He had developed cancer. We got a bonus year. Weren't expecting to have that. But finally, Sunday, a couple of weeks ago, we reached the point where we didn't have a choice. So I contacted a service company, a veterinary service company, where they come to your home and they do the euthanasia process. And that turned into a sales story. And the reason is, when I called up, Joe, toughest phone call I've ever had to make. Right? I'm calling about my beloved pup. We had Rocky, we adopted him, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And the woman on the other end of the phone, Joe, her voice was at this level. Very soft-spoken. Mm-hmm. Never referred to him as our dog. Never referred to him as an animal, but as our family member. And just came across so caring. So one of the things I talk with salespeople about is the importance of empathetic expertise. Empathetic expertise means you understand how the people that you're selling to are feeling about the issues you address, and you convey that understanding when you're interacting with them. Very few salespeople possess that, unfortunately. They just want to have logic conversations. Let's talk features, let's talk benefits.
Yeah, I think that's great. That the tone of voice, the volume, I call it the verbal packaging. I call it, where you're you're using the best ways to create value for the client. And when you call something like that, it is a sensitive subject. And I think all of us who have pets. I had unfortunately my dog Brownie about 6 years ago. It was she has 14 years with us, and she's like my daughter. It's like,
so you know exactly what
exactly, and it's very, very emotional, and definitely. Well, I'm glad that is it. It's like, so when people say like, well, I don't do sales, I just do this job, and it's like, dude, that's in a way you're. We're all in the sales business, right? No matter who you are. Absolutely. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. We're also all in the psychology business. I mean, that's really what sales is, but it's a giant extrapolation of psychology.
Well, thank you for the effort in our. I'm going to raise your self-esteem here, if that's okay, psychology-wise, and tell you how much I appreciate the effort you make to document all these great ideas and compilations of contrarian methods that I've read from. One of my favorites is sales differentiation, and all different kinds of stuff there. So let's talk about some contrarian concepts, if you don't mind. That's the title of
Sure.
today's show will be just like Sales Contrarian Concepts by the master Lee Salz, who is he's the only one I know who's got this title. So it's like America's Service Sales Coach. I claimed that title, nobody else did.
Yeah.
So I took it. So you got this one, Lee. I'm glad you were smart enough to grab that title before somebody else did. But go ahead, tell us what are some concepts that you can kind of discuss that can help sales professionals and maybe even the owners of companies kind of help their people to differentiate, because that's really what I feel sales is about, is not being the same as everybody. Tell us how we can differentiate ourselves and in some contrarian what do you call it, counterintuitive methods that will work to help us get a foothold.
And there's also counterintuitive mindset. So we started a little bit of a downer. We talked a little about Rocky. We talked a little bit about Brownie, but now let's rock and roll. Now let's have some fun. Joe, you ready for this concept?
Let's do it.
There's no such thing as a great salesperson, and I can prove it.
Oh, really?
I can.
Let's do that for sure.
Okay, so I always put that out there, and I always get this head tilt from executives like, what do you mean there's no such thing as a great salesperson? Like I said, I can prove it. And I'll ask them, how many of these so-called great salespeople have you hired? They had a great track record, strong resume, polished look that failed in your company.
Pretty much all
of them. If you believe, none of them, right? Every executive has that story. So if you believe in great salespeople, you also have to subscribe to one of the following, given that failure. Either that person showed up on your doorstep and completely forgot how to sell, or your company is the worst company in the history of the business to sell for. Be one of those two, if you believe in great salespeople. See, the issue is the positioning of the word great. See, I believe that every sales role is unique. The factors that lead to success, failure, or underperformance in that role are unique for every sales role out there. And so a company may have 3 or 4 different sales roles. Those factors, I call them performance factors, are different in every single one of those roles. So what do most executives do? Well, we got to go hire a salesperson. So step 1, let's go see some candidates. No. Step 1 is, let's understand the factors that lead to success, failure, or underperformance in the role. Because we should be looking for, are those salespeople with the potential to be great in this specific role? That's the issue, the positioning of the word great. We should be looking for the salespeople, the right ones with the potential to be great in this specific role. I'll give you an example. Turn back time a little bit, the dot-com boom. So the hiring strategy for a lot of the dot-coms was to go to the big software powerhouses, go to Microsoft, for example, hire their salespeople to come to work at the dot-com. What they didn't recognize was when you work for Microsoft, you were a finalist for every piece of business before any evaluation ever took place. You were in the door. Now you're working for no-name.com. Calling the same CIOs, and you can't get in the door. They didn't have the skill set to introduce a new company to a CIO, so they couldn't get in. Mm-hmm. So if I was working for that, if it was my .com, I should say, one of the things that I would recognize is I need a salesperson that has an expertise in introducing a new company, a new solution, whatever it might be, to the C-suite. Then the question becomes, is that something that I want to teach? And if the answer is no, better possess that before coming in the door. If not, they're going to fail here. So I need to evaluate them during the candidate process and make sure that they possess that skill. So that's what we're looking for. The salespeople with the potential to be great in this specific role. How's that for a start?
That is a great start. What is the methodology? I mean, I found my mind probing a little further because it's like, I think that's a great concept. What do we do? What kind of a tool do you have or anything like that we can measure or to see if it's likely that the candidate would be good at that type of a skill or whatnot, or the different types of skills you may be looking for? Maybe you're looking for a closer, maybe like somebody who just opens up new business to your company or things like that. So there is different elements, and not one person is great at all of them. I agree. So I've seen really great salespeople say, "Hey, where's my leads?" I'm like, "Dude, you got to go find your own leads," and they don't know about that. Oh, I got to do that. So it's interesting. Go ahead and tell me a little bit about all these different little verticals that are inside the sales opportunities.
Yeah.
And how do we figure out who's good at what?
Yeah. So what we would do is put the people aside for a moment and let's just look at the role and identify what factors would lead someone to succeed, fail, or underperform. And I'll give you an example. Before AI came along, I would have conversations regularly with executives where they would say, I just saw this email that one of my salespeople sent out, and my brand is embarrassed. They can't put two words together in a sentence. Then I saw a proposal that they wrote. Oh my gosh, we didn't get the deal. So writing skills is important to a salesperson's success in your company. Absolutely. How did you evaluate that salesperson's writing skills before you extended an offer? Now I hear crickets chirping because they never did. So here's a highly impactful performance factor that affects their ability to be successful, and we're hiring them without assessing them for it. And I have some techniques to use for that, which doesn't cost one penny to put into practice. So what a company could do is take 3, 4, 5 sales scenarios, write a little paragraph laying it out. And if you have a candidate, this isn't the first thing you do. Once you're in the process with a candidate, you would say, okay, so the next step of our process is we're going to email you 5 sales scenarios that you're likely to encounter if you were selling for us. I'd like you to put together your written responses to those scenarios. Doesn't cost you one penny to put into practice, but think about what you find out. Are they philosophically aligned with you? Right? This is the way I would go about navigating the price issue. Okay, is that how you want that done in your sales organization? You don't give them a deadline for it. You ask them when they can have it for you, because if they can't meet a self-imposed deadline, they're never going to meet yours and they're not going to meet a client's. But you also get to see their writing abilities. It's an open book test. So what if they have a friend proof their work? Because they'll do the same thing if they're working for you. They recognize that they need to go through that proofing. I don't care if they use Grammarly or some other way to clean it up. What I do care about is that they meet the deadline and they write in a way that A, I'm philosophically aligned with their solution, and B, they're writing in a way that is positively reflective of our brand.
That's interesting because it is interesting because every organization has got a certain thing that they would like to see being done a certain way, and it's like, and I think like the people in the C-suite or the sales management people know that like, that guy needs training our way because there's different ways of doing the same thing, and in some organizations, a certain behavior may be acceptable. And they may have 5 of them that are great, but there's one thing that's going to kill it every time, and people may miss that way, right? That's interesting because in our thing, I'm more of I follow more of the sales contrarian camp as well too. So I would be looking for people who are going to do something that's a little counterintuitive and a little bit more. Using scarcity as a trigger per se, and the psychological scarcity trigger, as opposed to trying to push people or trying to enthusiastically push people through it. In general, does that make sense, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. That's a really good. So it doesn't cost you anything to say, hey, let's make up 5 scenarios that whatever industry you're in is a real common situation that happens. How would you approach it, and how close did they come to maybe the benchmarks that we have defined at this company for a successful salesperson? Is it even close, or is it like, wow, that is completely not going to work? Now, Lee, is it the kind of thing where you throw the baby with the bathwater out, or is the person has an open mind that says, you know what, maybe I thought I was good at sales because I worked at a place that we're the only people who sold a widget like this, right? But I think I do need help, and they're open-minded on that thing. What about that aspect of it where somebody is, maybe not going to match up with your benchmarks, but they expressed a willingness to erase whatever they knew in the tapes in their head and want to start over again? What do you think of that?
Yeah. So what happens is when you develop what I call a performance factor portfolio, imagine the left-hand column, you would list all the factors that lead to success, failure, underperformance in the role. Not every one of them is, oh my gosh, they're going to be a huge success, or, oh my goodness, they're going to fail here, right? So you're going to rank each one of them as high, medium, and low relative to their impact on performance. Then the next column, which you put in, is what are you willing to teach and what are you not willing to teach? And there are some things that can't be taught. For example, resilience. You can't teach someone to be resilient. You either are or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, of course, one of the factors that leads someone to succeed or failure. If you, at the first sign of pushback, first sign of rejection, you crumble up in the corner and cry for an hour, sales is probably not the right role for you. So,
Right.
So then you have what I call deal breakers. Anything that is highly impactful on their ability to be successful, and you're not willing to teach it or can't be taught, that's a deal breaker, meaning if the candidate doesn't have it, they're out. Because you said this has a major impact on their ability to be successful, and I'm not teaching it.
Nice.
And it used to be, again, before AI, before tools like Grammarly came along, writing skills fell into that category. So when I developed hiring processes for clients and we got to that subject, all of a sudden those became deal breakers. Executives say, you know what? We need people that can write intelligently because so much of sales is emails, proposals. So you are communicating in written form. And if you can't write that way, and we're not running a high school or a college, and we're not teaching writing skills, you can't have a salesperson that can't write.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by deal breaker.
That is interesting. Is that, I know you had a book called, I think, Higher Right, Higher Profits. Is that
good memory? That is correct. Higher Right, Higher Profits.
I think I remember one of my books I do have in my Kindle library. I think I have it from you.
Yep.
But is that something that is covered more specifically and
there
over
is
the course of the material?
Yeah, there is. Higher Right, Higher Profits. There is a chapter dedicated to the subject of identifying performance factors. There's a series of questions that help you identify what those performance factors might be for a particular role.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's it's funny because I read that book years ago, and I think I lost track of it, and I'm like, oh, what was the book you wrote on this subject? And I had to go look it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was looking at my
Good
Kindle
memory.
just now, and I'm like, it's there, So it's funny because it's like the hiring part of it is something that I think a lot of people who own the companies and even people, I think it looks at both ends of this. If you're a salesperson, it's like, how can I fit into the profile to get a good sales job? I want to make sure I gain these skills or work on these skills to show that I am a good candidate. And same with the other people on the other side. How do we look for people who can communicate with emotions, with feeling, with in both the technical part and the emotional part of it? They're I call them balance on that, right?
Yeah.
So
well, there's an important message for salespeople that you just raised. Most companies are really not good at evaluating sales talent. So they extend offers to the wrong people because they don't go through this type of an exercise that I just described. So the burden is on you as a salesperson when you're going through the interview process for you to determine where your strengths and weaknesses are and evaluate the role as much as you're being evaluated. So, for example, if you know that you're really not a good prospector and they're not going to be teaching prospecting, well, we know how the movie's going to play out if they hire you. You're going to fail because they're not going to teach it and you're not good at it. So you would want to be in an environment where leads are generated or there's something that's warmed up for you because that's where your skill set matches best. So the burden is on the salespeople, and I have these conversations all the time. If you're interviewing and you get an offer, that doesn't mean that you're the right fit there. You know that better than they do. So you have to really go through that exercise. One of the evaluation techniques that I use with salespeople is at the end of the first interview, what questions do you have for me? And it's not an arbitrary question where I really am saying, boy, did I miss something or was I unclear about something? I want to see that they came in with a prepared list.
That's
because
nice.
if the fewer questions they have for me, the less interested I am in them.
That is a good fact. That's interesting because every person who's brought it in, it just by actions shows the level of enthusiasm in a way, displaying your level of enthusiasm by preparing something before you came in. Or sometimes I'll do something like, what do you know about us? What research have you done on us? and like, oh yeah, I've learned all about you, and I'm honored to be here. I can't believe you're interviewing. Like that's I'm like, okay, well, I'm not trying to do that, but I'm like, it's like it's nice. Well, what did you find out in the research? And it's like, yeah, I bought your book and everything. So it's like, okay, well, that definitely is a great start. You know, that the enthusiasm is there. But you know, you just give me an aha moment, Lee. You probably don't know this, but you know, the aha moment is not only is this good for when you hire salespeople, but it, like you just said, it's good for salespeople to say, what are the kind of they maybe even ask your new place, hey, tell me about just some of the kind of scenarios I'm going to run into so I can put that in writing and just kind of work out some
Right.
written responses for myself to kind of work on this. This way you're working on these weaknesses or trying something different. So not
Mm-hmm.
only is I think this is a great exercise for the people who are hiring people, but for the salesperson themselves, I think you just mentioned that. That's what I think you
Yeah,
were trying to say to us, right? Which is that
correct.
you should do this too. Like, if you're currently working at a job, if you're not looking for a new job, like take the avatar of the different scenarios that happen and write out some responses and see the kind of game
That's
plan
right.
you want to kind of create for that. So you just that's a golden nugget that we call that, Lee, on the show. So
Well, thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for that. Yeah, you didn't even know it, but you just spilled out some golden nuggets there. What else we got here, Lee? What are some other contrarian
Okay.
concepts we can display here? So that's the
Joe, I got
contrarian
to
one.
fill
Make
in the
sure to do
blank
that.
for you. You ready?
Let's do it.
You're only as good as your blank sale. So the expression's been around forever. You're only as good as your blank sale.
That's it. Your last sale.
That is the expression, and it's the most horrible expression ever uttered in the sales profession. What
Got
it
it.
says is worry about yesterday because that's all I'm going to measure you on.
Yeah.
Any sales leader worth their salt, any business owners worth their salt is worried about tomorrow.
Mm,
The expression should be you're only as good as your next sale. And when
mm,
you have that mindset, what do you think about? I got to get referrals, right? Because I have to keep a healthy pipeline. Good news, I got a piece of business today. Yay. But now the pipeline has one less deal in it. I got to replenish it. So I always argue that the expression is you're only as good as your next sale. And if you have that, it leads me to sharing the business developer's mantra. This is an expression that if you truly grab hold of it, if you embrace it, you'll have success at levels you never dreamed imaginable. You ready for it, Joe?
let's hear it.
Every deal must yield two more.
Mm,
Every deal must yield two more.
mm,
Think about what that says. There are upsells, there are cross sells, there's referrals, there's more juice to be squeezed. I hate the word closing in sales because closing has a finality to it. It's done, it's over. It's not, it's the
mm.
next phase of the relationship. There's so much more to come from that. Not to mention that they can serve as a reference for you, they can serve as a case study for you, which again helps you bring in more new business.
That is amazing. You know, both of those concepts, I love that. Yeah, because that's the first thing I think of when somebody sells something. It's like, all right, well, that's great. On to and it's true, like, you know, because I see, like, we do a thing with the premium mid-range economy choices, and usually 74% are buying in the mid-range, and which leaves some other fruit on the tree yet. And scheduling, I would say a professional would schedule. So I always say, well, what did you do to schedule the next thing then on this? Did you? Hey, it's a great sale. We got
Right.
35,000 or whatever. But hey, so see, there's some other stuff still. Did you schedule the next activity on this thing? And that's one of those things that
Right.
you can kind of measure by professionals, right? I think that, and on top of it, you could get referrals and stuff like that too. But I think the thing is, right with the same customer, the next sale is always available. Is that kind of what you're saying there?
There's always more to be gotten if you have mindset.
Well, I think it's like just excellent customer service is what you're teaching here, Lee,
Mhm.
because excellent customer service is, to me, anticipating the thing that your client's going to need next and thinking about it before they do. Does that make sense,
Yes,
sir? What do you
that's
think of
right.
that concept?
Agreed. Agreed.
It's,
You want
so if
another
you
one?
think about, yeah, go ahead, tell me. What is it? Another one. Let's go.
Okay. We're going to talk about prospecting.
My favorite subjects.
You can prospect too much. You can prospect too much. If you're reaching out to people and you haven't done any research, so the only reason you're calling is to try to sell them something, and you're making them feel like the sales call, the moment, you're prospecting too much. There has to be a
Mm,
reason for that outreach. The beauty of all these online tools makes it so much easier to figure out who needs what you have. Another one is sales is nothing but a numbers game. How many millions of times have you heard that? And I completely disagree with that.
I
That
disagree with
says
that
it's all
too.
about quantity, nothing about quality.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, if you look at sales through the lens of a numbers game, you treat people like a number. And no one ever wants to feel that way. Everyone wants to feel special. And one of the things I talk about in my keynotes, a secret of my personal recipe with clients, if you were to ask any one of my clients, how many active clients does Lee have? How many keynotes has he done this month? They wouldn't have a clue, because I make every one of them feel like they're the only one that I've got. And everyone that's listening to this podcast has the same ability to do exactly that. You make people feel like they're your only one, and they will truly enjoy doing business with you.
That sounds great. Because I don't even know how many other podcasts you've done. I never looked into it, but I do feel special on this one. So definitely, you've achieved that.
Well, thank you.
I didn't get the idea you're focusing on something else or someone else, or trying to get something from me at all. You never have. I think that's one of those things. I think it's not a number. I would say, so if you can say it's not a numbers game, it's a blank game. What would that be then? What would you say? How would you fill it in? The thing that should, because you said before, it's not a, what do you call it? The past thing. It's it's an Excel, right? So what's the fill in the blank? If you don't mind me testing you on this, or milking the tree here a little bit, getting more fruit off the tree here from Lee. So what is it then? What is it? So it's a what game? It's not a numbers game. What kind of game is it then?
I got to first ask you, milking a tree is a new expression.
I don't know where I came up with that. Oh, shit. As I said it, I'm like, I hope he doesn't even recognize I just said that.
A tree.
I mean, what tree has nipples in it, Lee? Can you milk me, Greg?
You do. You know what's coming next.
I don't know where I came up with that. It was just like, it just came. That's where, as an open mouth, stuff comes out. That's.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! So the answer is,
don't worry, we're not gonna cut that out at all. We're gonna leave that in. That's gonna be the promo. That's the promo roll right there. The tree that has nipples. Anyway, go ahead, Lee. Tell us what kind of game is it if it's not the numbers game?
It's a delicate balance between the qualitative and quantitative aspect. If you don't have enough activity, you're gonna have a dry pipeline. If you have so much activity that there's no quality to it, you're going to have a dry pipeline. So the delicate balance is, every time you're going to have an outreach, before you pick up the phone, before you send an email, that you've done some homework that helps to identify why they should be interested in having a conversation with you. That's the test.
Interesting. So just so something that makes them want to look forward to the next meeting, like, oh, this is going to be good. I can't wait. I can't wait for that. That's going to be great for the next piece that's happening. Wow, Lee, those are some great things. You got any more in the hopper here for us? What else you got?
Oh, I got tons.
I think you said you had like 39 of these. How many did you say you have?
I'll give you another one.
Okay. What's another one?
When do most people network?
When they're at events and stuff like that. And
why are they networking? Why are they networking?
Probably
because they want to get something.
They're trying to get something. Trying to get something from somebody.
That's the wrong time to network. You network when you have something to give. You start by giving, and you earn the right to receive. But most people, when do they network? Oh, I just lost my job. Hey, Joe, can you help me find a job? That's how the conversation starts.
That is so funny because we just went to an event. Our most successful event we ever went to. We brought 1,000 books with us, and we just brought these books. And I'm like, your job is to not ship any books back. There's 5,000 people at this event. I want 20% of the people with a book in their hand walking around. And it was like, so we told people the idea is not to. We didn't bring up the gathering leads. Of course, we got more leads than we ever got. Because people said they felt obligated. Oh, now how do I get them? Because we gave them the book, and they're like, how do I get an appointment with you guys on this? And it's like, oh, okay, we could do that, right? Here's my calendar. But bottom line is that because we went into it with the spirit, the whole team had the spirit of giving away. Let's just give these books away because we bought 1,000 of them. Let's put it in people's hands so they can read it, right? Because a book sitting on in our shelf doesn't do anything, right? So that's really interesting way of looking at it. I think that's so if you go to like a if you're a service contractor, and you're working at a home trade show, or a home show or something like that, better off going there to give people something than to take something, or trying to get something from them.
Mm-hmm.
You think that's true on that part of it there?
Absolutely. What could you give to them that they would find meaningful, that they would then want to engage in conversation with you?
Yeah, like we used to do a thing called the dirty little secrets of why your HVAC system doesn't heat the second floor on your home, or whatever type of a thing. And that's exactly my home. It's like,
that's funny you say that.
That's
I don't have a heat issue, but definitely my air conditioning. And I know, hot air rises, blah blah blah. But when we get 80, 85 degrees, which isn't very often here in Minnesota, but when it's happened, the upstairs of our home sometimes gets a little warmer than we want it to be.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like those are the kinds of things where you can see definite problems that are kind of repetitive problems that you can kind of make a special report on to give some information. I think content information, which you're a master of that. You do so many articles, and you write so many newsletters, and so many books. You kind of get, nobody ever made any money off of an actual book itself, really. Right. It's the other things that come off of it that people feel obligated to ask more about it, right, Lee? Is that
100%.
Giving that information is like, wow, this is a lot of information for $25 or $20 or whatever type of a thing, right?
Exactly. So do we have time to do one more?
You know what? Yeah, we do. We got
one more.
I could spend all day with Lee Salz, you know that, but one more just to make sure that people still want more, right? We want to make sure they still want more from you at the end of this concept. So what do you got here, Lee?
Okay. So what are salespeople supposed to do with objections? What have they been told?
Handle objections, or to...
No, it's an O word. It's an O word.
I don't know.
Overcome objections.
Overcome. Okay, I get it.
Right? Isn't that we tell salespeople, overcome objections. Yeah. So think about that message. What we're saying is we're going to put on the boxing gloves. We're going to fight this out. You're buying or you're crying, and then expect a hug afterwards, because build relationships. They don't go together. You can't say I overcome objections and build relationships, because you're saying we're going to start off adversarial, and all of a sudden we're going to be friends afterwards. It doesn't work. But if you saw it through the lens of concerns, what you're hearing is not a fight, but help me. And you sit on the same side of the desk and navigate the issue.
I agree with that. I always say that when you get resistance from the client, your ability to move through that resistance and illuminate the path that takes them to getting the thing done, or getting the purchase done, is really a service you're offering. It's not. I don't look at it like it's overcome. I don't look at it as a conflict. I look at it as they just don't know what path to take. So let me illuminate the path to get there, and give you a choice between. Yeah, you could do it that way if you want me to email it, or we could just come over here and just eliminate some of the ones that aren't right for you. Look at the top one. That's probably too much, right? And let's just move through it a little bit. And I think I look at it like
the price objection, right? Everybody's familiar with the price objection. I don't believe that exists. It's constructive criticism. When someone pushes back on your price, what they're saying is two sides of a scale. Meaningful value on one side, your price on the other. What they're saying is you haven't demonstrated enough meaningful value to support the price you put in front of them. That's it. It's not an objection. It's not a concern. It's constructive criticism. And if you're hearing that often enough, it's time to retool your sales strategy, because you're not demonstrating enough meaningful value for the price you're putting out there. Either lower your price or provide more meaningful value.
That is it's the value gap, right? How can I create the value stack? They always say, now it's a new buzzword. It's the value stack.
The value
to
stack.
exceed the price. I think it's a great concept. And Lee, do you have any just a pro tip on how some general ways you can increase the value? Because I don't think anybody here, if you came to this podcast, because you're not going to hear Uncle Joe say, let's lower the price. Those aren't going to come out of my. Those words aren't coming out of my mouth. That is your choice: lower the price or create more value. What are some of the ways?
Those are the only two you have.
What are some of the things you can recommend?
Let's talk about how to navigate the price.
Just a little bit there, yeah.
So there's a framework that I've developed. I call it EASE. It's an acronym: EASE. E stands for empathy. A is ask. S is share, and the last E is ensure. So whenever we get any type of concern or pushback, we start off with an empathy statement. I appreciate you sharing that with me as an example of one. Why do you do that? It shows respect. It shows that they've been heard. It's acknowledgement that they've been heard. Very, very positive. It's not confrontational. It also buys you a couple of seconds to think about where you want to take the conversation next. Ask is asking questions to make sure you truly understand what the concern is. Price can be for a number of reasons, based on my budget, based on my availability on my credit card, relative to another proposal I'm looking at. There's a whole host of other possibilities. Until I know what I'm up against, I can't respond appropriately, which is the next step, which is the S, the share. And we, based on what we learned from the question or questions, we then share information appropriately. And then the last E is ensure. So often salespeople just throw a bunch of stuff out there like spaghetti at the wall, hoping that it resolved the concern, but they don't ask the question. So what I just shared, does that make you more comfortable? Without asking that, that's still an issue potentially out there. So most salespeople have a one-step process, not a four-step. Just share. Let me just throw a bunch of stuff out there. No empathy statement. They don't ask questions. They just share a bunch of stuff, and they don't make sure that the information they've shared resolves the concern.
That is amazing. Well, Lee, number one, because there's still more fruit on this tree, and I'm gonna milk that tree.
Let's not milk the tree again. We've already done that.
I'm gonna keep doing it because it's my new friend. I'm gonna make a T-shirt. I'm gonna turn that into a product.
Next time we talk, that's gonna be your T-shirt.
It's gonna be a T-shirt. I gotta get one.
We milk
Lee,
trees.
You have to. I mean, I'm gonna ask you. So if I were to ask you to come back on this podcast in the future, what would happen then?
I'd love it.
Well, then it's a date for sure, because I could talk to you for hours. And where can Joe and the rest of our community find Lee? Is there any live appearances you want to bring up, or anything that is books or anything you want to promote that people can learn a little bit more about what I learned about 12 years ago, and I'm still learning? I've recommended and sent out emails to thousands of my clients recommending your material, and I still do. What can we do, Lee, to make sure that we can continue this conversation, either with books or live appearances or whatever? What can we do in that? What's the next thing we can do here?
I appreciate it. So probably best place is to go to my website, which is salesarchitects.com, and that's plural, architects, salesarchitects.com. And there's tons of free resources there. First of all, there's a video series that I do called Lee's Lessons. And every week I have a new video that comes out, always short, anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes. You'll see the current episode right on the homepage. If you go to YouTube, you can find my channel there, tons of videos. Just Google my name, or YouTube my name, I guess would be the expression there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always sharing content as well. And I provide consulting services, keynote services, and workshops.
Well, Lee, again, thank you so much for coming here and imparting all your wisdom, some of your wisdom. It's only a small part. For everything you gave us, there's like 10,000 things you didn't. So I'm not going to get all of it, but I definitely am committed to having you come back on if you will do that. And anything I could do for your audience, I'd love to do that too. Lee, thank you so much for being here. And thanks everybody for listening to this podcast and watching this podcast. And we look to see you next time on the Service MVP podcast.